All set?
Mhm.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Irma Baker. Welcome to our show. We have a wonderful show for you today with a local author who has written a children's book, and I am just so pleased to have her on the show. Her name is Sue Scandlin, and Sue, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for scheduling me and taking the time out to listen to my story.
Well, your story, both your story of publishing and the story within the book you wrote, I think are fascinating and will be very interesting to our viewers. You're a Medina area resident. You grew up in Strongsville, but you, when you got married, is that when you moved to
Yeah, so I've been in Medina County since 2000.
this 2000?
Mhm.
And now you're a Wadsworth resident. You've been living in Wadsworth for the last three years or so?
3 years.
And
Great town. Like really, I had never been to Wadsworth before except for a couple wrestling tournaments. And that was you drive in, go to the school, watch, and then leave. So I actually had never really been around the town. And I pleasantly surprised and pleased with Wadsworth. I really like it.
I think Wadsworth is a wonderful town. It has that small town feeling to it and the personal feeling, and yet it's not that far from major shopping, major highways, and all that. So it's kind of the best of all worlds. In
Right, that's what I'm finding. Yeah.
yeah. So, well, you mentioned that you've only been to Wadsworth before moving here. You were only here to come to wrestling tournaments. Now, you're not the wrestler, right?
I am not the wrestler.
But your husband was a wrestler.
He
Uh,
wrestled for Black River, which is in Medina County, out in Spencer.
mhm. And you got involved in wrestling and school wrestling
Mm,
when your son was in school.
yes. So
Now,
in first grade, he started wrestling in first grade.
I did not have any idea the kids started wrestling that young. Isn't that unusual?
No, actually, it's a lot of schools will actually let them start if they are 4 or 5. I think Wadsworth, though, he didn't wrestle for Wadsworth Youth. He wrestled for Cloverleaf Youth. Um, I think Wadsworth starts you in first grade, but some of them do age 5 or 6 years old. But there's actually kindergartners and occasionally a preschooler who's just not old enough for kindergarten that start wrestling. Yeah, I didn't know that either until I started this.
I think that's fascinating. I don't think of sports really coming into the schools until maybe middle school. So that was really surprising. And the kids are physically mature enough, their bodies and all are stable enough that at that early age they can, because that's wrestling is very physical.
It is. It is. The kids, when they're younger, they're very resilient. And actually, a lot of times, Wadsworth doesn't have any girl wrestlers, but a lot of the other schools around do. And a lot of times when they're younger, the girls are actually stronger than the boys for whatever reason, their muscle development and stuff. And they bounce back really quickly. And depending on like the uh, the mental and physical where the kids are, there's the youth kids who are like very into wrestling and they pick up on it and they're very physically fit and very athletic. And there's two different teams. There's like all-star and varsity. So the kids who are just there to be, physically fit, have fun, learn about the sport, join the team, they would kind of be like the all-star kids. And then the kids who are like, man, I love this and I'm very athletic, and they would be like more the varsity kids. And so they train a little bit different, but not really. It's just more, endurance and stuff like that.
It just seems so much for kids that young, in addition to adjusting to school, also adjusting to be part of a sports program.
Yeah, they now like with youth wrestling, typically it's only like 2 days a week. I know a lot of those kids, like they have pee-wee football and t-ball, and they do those in the summer, and those are, multiple days a week. It's just that wrestling it's very taxing physically.
I would think it would be. Now, you as a mother, this son of yours comes home one day. In the book, Cole's journey into wrestling, the storyline is that the little boy comes home with a flyer about wrestling and basically says, Mom, I want to try this. Is that what happened in your own family?
No, thinking back, I'm trying to remember how we even started this because ironically, my son in kindergarten, like when he was 4, 5, 6, he played basketball, but he was just a tiny little peanut. And my husband, since he wrestled, he of course was like, basketball, and I played basketball. So I was like, okay, yeah, basketball. And at some point, one of his friends must have said something, and I was like, okay, I'll talk to Dad about it. I didn't even know my husband wrestled until then. Um, so then, of course, he was like, yeah, I was wondering when this was going to happen. And then from there on out, it was just, that's the sport.
Oh, so you had an adjustment as a mother to make of a sport that you didn't know anything about, and suddenly your son, your little tiny son, wants to get involved in what we think as a really, uh, perhaps even a brutal sport at times.
Yeah. And he was very tiny. He was a preemie. So he's always been very, very tiny. I remember in 6th grade, he only weighed 65 pounds. So when he started in kindergarten, I think he was like 45 pounds. Like he never really, now he's like huge, but he was very tiny. So for me, not knowing anything, and I had only in high school been to, I think, one, maybe two wrestling matches, like for my high school team at Strongsville. I had only been to probably two. And, that was high school kids, and they're rough and tough. And like you said, very physical. It was, and so then just be like, oh, my tiny little peanut wants to wrestle, was like, oh my goodness, he's so tiny. They're going to snap his arm. They're going to snap his leg. And, it was just kind of a lot to learn and a lot to adjust to. And I had no idea. I didn't know anything, nothing.
Is that why you wrote the book?
It is actually. So my son started wrestling, and not long after he started wrestling, they found out that my husband wrestled, and youth, you get like volunteer coaches and stuff. So then they dragged him into coaching, and he of course loved it. But so he was coaching and doing that, and I was in the stands, and I didn't know anything. And I would ask people, and you don't really want to bother the coaches, and you don't want to seem like an idiot. Like, I don't know, like, how come he got 2 points when he was on top last time, but this time he didn't get 2 points? Like, I didn't know. And the first year was kind of, okay, I'll figure it out. I didn't know anything. And then the second year he started wrestling, I'm like, I need to figure out what is going on, because basketball scoring is easy. You get 3 points, you get the 2 points, you get the foul shot. And I had no clue. So I started asking more questions, and I started getting more involved, paying attention and watching. And then the older my son got, my husband still kept coaching, and I started learning more and volunteering more. And so I would ask questions to try and find out, because since I was, a very involved mom, I was always there volunteering, and the coach's wife, I would have people ask me questions, and I didn't want to tell them the wrong information. So I felt almost obligated to learn, not only for myself, but for other people. What does this mean? Like, what does that have to do with anything? Why is the score? What does that mean? What is a blood time? Like all these different things. So I started thinking in my mind, I should write a book one day, and never did anything about it. And then my husband, like 2 years ago, was like, are you ever going to write that book you were talking about? And I was like, well, I shouldn't I? Seeing as my son's a senior this year, and last year, so spring of 2019 is when I finally was like, okay, I need to get this done, because by the time I write it and publish it and all that, he's going to be a senior, and I still want to be involved in the, the wrestling world. So that's kind of how I did it. And I started asking anything I didn't know. I would ask questions about it. And I think I covered pretty much everything in there. And I reviewed my information with wrestling greats and the kids and my husband and my son. And I think I covered it pretty well.
I think that's a very important point too, the fact that you didn't just base it on your own experience, you based it on information and I guess crediting the whole thing to make it really isn't accurate. You went out of your way to make this book accurate, and yet you did it as a picture book.
Yes.
So it's not something where people are going to be just wading their way through tons and tons of gray print.
Right.
You really made it wonderful pictures. And our viewers can see that on the backs behind you, on the wall behind you, that's the cover of the book, isn't it?
Yes, that's the cover of the book. I have a little banner, and here's the actual book.
Huh?
The back of it. Yep. So it's very thick. I mean, it's over 96 pages. And I did, because it is for wrestlers, the pages are very, very thick. I went with the very thick pages, and I went with the hardcover to try and make it durable for the wrestlers. And so I kind of thought about that too. And it's funny because it could have been a chapter book.
What's a chapter book? You have to tell us what a chapter book is.
So a chapter book is kind of how you were talking about, just the pages like gray, just typing on it, no pictures in it, or a sketch here and there. Because there's so much information, instead of being a children's picture book, it actually could have been just a chapter book, a textbook with different chapters. And I could have broken it down into, you know, coming home, and then his first practice, and then, you know, wrestle offs, and then the tournament. And then, so I could have done that. But since it was about youth wrestling, and most people, not everybody, but most wrestlers start in elementary school, which is the youth wrestling. So I wanted to make it for me, like how when I was that parent in first grade, I didn't know anything. There's no book in the world, literally, written like this, that explains step by step terminology, what everything means, and then still has like a fun storyline to it. But I wanted to focus on the younger kids and their families, because it's important, if you want to keep the sport growing, that everyone has a foundation on what it really is. Because before my son joined, like, I had no idea what wrestling was. Like I said, like brutal, like I think you mentioned the word brutal, like you think possibly that's all that it is. So I wanted to explain all that. And with it being for elementary school focus, I wanted the pictures to make it, you know, interesting. And it's a very long read. So even my daughter, who's in third grade, she reads like fifth grade. She likes reading it and stuff, but we actually read it at bedtime, and we break it up and take turn, you know, 10 minutes one night, 10 minutes the next night. Cause it's 20-30 minute read, depending on how fast you read. And I wanted the kids to be able to enjoy it with the pictures, and the adults to be able to learn something through the words on it. So that's kind of why I went with the children's picture book instead of a chapter book.
Well, that brings up a good point. Can anyone enjoy the book, or do you have to be interested in wrestling?
No, I actually have. So you touched on before, I did a lot of research on this, and I talked to well-known names in the wrestling world. I have reviews on the book from people in the wrestling world. And I checked all my information, and I wanted to make it specifically more for wrestling, but I did have people who don't know anything about wrestling. They're basketball people, or they're like soccer people. I did have them read it as well. A couple of my editors, like I did, it's called a beta reader, where you have someone read your book beforehand. And then I did have it edited at Ashland Bookmasters is the place that I printed. But I had a bunch of people kind of like pre-edit it for me. And one is a high school coach at Cloverleaf. He coaches girls basketball and softball. He's like drama leader of the drama, Coach Carm is his name, John Carmigiano. He knew nothing about wrestling. He read it and he's like, oh my goodness, this like makes me want to be there at all the wrestling matches. I've had a couple friends who've read it, and their kids like sports, but they didn't wrestle. And they're like, my kid was so into the story that they were like, oh, maybe I should wrestle, you know, and they're like, no, just stick with basketball or whatever. So it's really not it's not specifically for wrestling, but the cool thing is so Jeff Jordan, he's like, anybody in wrestling knows his name. Rudis Sports, like they do a lot of the clothing, and you'll see in the book their symbol and their name on there, and there's a picture of their van in there. I wanted to talk to people who are well known and who would be recognized, so that people would know that I really did my research, because Rudis isn't going to let you put them in their book if you didn't research it, So I have, reviews from, Jeff Jordan, Coach G, he used to be the wrestling coach here forever at Wadsworth. The current coach, Clay Wenger, and a bunch of other high school graduated Wadsworth people, Brad Squire, Nick Tavanello, just different people. And then we've had high school and college kids that we're just friends with who used to wrestle. They're not in youth and they're reading it. And the best story is there's this kid, he's a sophomore or junior in college, and he read the book and he's like, Miss Sue, my heart was beating 1,000,000 miles a minute, because I was just like, is he gonna win? Is he gonna win? Because in the story, sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses. So I wanted to grab the attention. So if you know nothing about sports, it's still a fun, exciting story, but then definitely pinpoint information for the people in wrestling. And the older kids are like, that totally reminds me of why I started and when I started. And then the new kids are like, oh, that's cool, I get to do that one day. And so I think I kind of hit the nail on the head with what I wanted.
Well, that's the writing part of it. So you've got the personal experience,
Mhm.
and you have the structure, the focus, how you want to portray it. But then I thought it was also very interesting that you used all local talent for publishing it. Your illustrator is local, and the publishing company. Now, this is self-published, and I would imagine some of our viewers have thought about self-publishing, not about wrestling, but maybe about something that they know, some area where they're well versed on it. And you've actually proved that you can stay right at home and get a book published.
Yes. So so when we moved here, I was talking to my neighbors across the street, and I, said I was starting to write a book, and I wanted to do everything that I could by myself. I did not go to college for writing. I did not go for publishing. I was going to be a school teacher, but then I got married and didn't do that. I ran a billing department for years for a doctor, like nothing that has anything to do with this. And I started talking to my neighbor, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to write this book, but I don't know any illustrators. So I guess that's my second step, find an illustrator. And she was like, oh, my friend's daughter, she's a photographer. She's an illustrator, an artist. So I contacted her, and Haley Pickard, now her name is Haley Hoffman, because she just got married. I had to stop and think. But she grew up in Wadsworth. I guess her mom, I think, was a preschool teacher, is or was a preschool teacher. I've only met her once. But so she's here from Wadsworth. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm writing it, in my house in Wadsworth. I have an illustrator from Wadsworth. And then I started talking to some people who, like in journalism and stuff, like, where could I get this book published? So I Googled and I pulled up, and they also mentioned Ashland Bookmasters. So I contacted them, and everything fell into place. And then that was like, I think I took longer than most people because I didn't know anything. Plus I am a mom, and wrestling does take up a lot of my time. And, so I think it took me a little bit longer because I started this spring of 2019. And then Haley was also new to this. So, we would meet and go over the pictures and make sure everything corresponded. And so I think it took me a little longer, but got that done and printed and everything. And then recently I just did a book trailer video, and that's also all local kids. So Christian Boffman, he's one of the Wadsworth High School coaches. He was a wrestler for Wadsworth. His family is everyone knows their name, probably a lot of people. He placed at state, you know, when he wrestled. And Christian portrayed the coach Bob in the story. And then there was my son, Logan Scanlon, Landon Hacker, and Mikey Lewarchik. They're current high school wrestlers. They were in the video. And then there was, I don't know all their last names, but there was 4 Wadsworth youth wrestlers and 6 Cloverleaf youth wrestlers that came in and portrayed a scene in the book, the practice scene. And then the 2 kids who actually did all the videoing and put together the trailer, they are also Medina County. They go to Medina Christian Academy, but one lives in Medina, one lives in Seville. And so I still kept everything local. My husband is self-employed. He owns a machine shop in Litchfield. And so we're very much be local, do everything you can to help, you know, your fellow, you know, Medina County people. So that's kind of where I wanted to make sure is if I could do everything here. And I was successful in doing that. So I'm real happy about that.
Well, this is great to know that you have that trailer. Now, for people who don't know what a trailer is, it's kind of just a short promotional video, isn't it?
Yes, so we filmed for about an hour, and then they narrowed it down to 1 minute and 51 seconds. And so it's just, you know, kind of tells you, kind of like when a movie's coming out and they do a short little parts, just different scenes of the movie. That's what a book trailer is. And not everybody does those, but I thought that would be very cool, especially using local kids. And so, yeah, it's 1 minute, 51 seconds. It's on my website, www.colesjourneyintowrestling.com. It's also on my Facebook page, and there's a picture of it on Instagram, but I don't know how to get video on there yet. But yeah, so it's in a couple different places. So definitely have to check that out because it's pretty cool seeing the local kids.
When you say it's on your website, when people go to your website, how would they find it? Where would they find it?
So you just start scrolling down and it'll pop up. It's like the second or third thing maybe. There's testimonials on there. There's videos, how to buy it, about me and about Haley. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the website. And and that's another thing. So a website was made, Abby Swigert or Abby, her name's Abby, and she does a lot of like websites and stuff. She works at Brush Tips. She actually also helps me do my website. So there's another local connection.
Oh, you are really, really an advocate for buy local and
Yeah,
not just produce or the things that we normally think, the things that you can pick up in a store or something like that, but all these services that are available locally.
Right. And it was funny because my daughter and I had been shopping. We went to the Opal Dragonfly and I was talking to the owner and just talking about my book. And she actually said, oh, you should use Abby. So then I used Abby, and Abby's like, oh, I went to school with Haley, my illustrator, because they both do art. So it's kind of a crazy, fun thing.
Oh, that's so neat to know that that's what you're doing. And you know what? We are almost out of time already. We have maybe, let's see, about 5 minutes left. So, oh my gosh, we could talk for hours.
I know. And I'm a talker too. So, and I get so excited about this book.
Well, that's great. How about showing us a few pages from the book and what's some points, maybe some pages that you would really like people to know, and repeat also, what is your website?
Okay, so my website is www.colesjourneyintowrestling.com, and my Facebook and Instagram are Cole's Journey into Wrestling. So yeah, you can get information there for any of them. The story is all like fiction. I use some names that I kind of played on names with for some people that I know, but none of these happened in a youth wrestling event that I'm ever aware of. But this is the back of the book. I'm going to start backwards real quick. So Haley drew and we did diagrams of what a wrestler wears and explains everything. Same thing with what a referee wears and explains everything. I did some key terminologies that need to know for wrestling. I have those in the back also. Basic scoring, what you need to know about scoring, terminology like words, just things that you would need to know. Let's see, I have pictures like the one scene that we did the trailer for. This is a scene from the trailer where Logan is showing what a singlet is, explaining to the kids what the singlet is. Here's wrestle-offs when they wrestle off for who gets the varsity spot. Here's a picture. This is in the trailer where the kids are running and warming up. There's a really cool, I was mentioning how Rudis, the clothing company, this is the Rudis van. And this actually is, they went out to the parking lot, snapped a picture and sent it to me so that I could use it because they're big wrestling stuff. So there's so many pictures, I could just keep going on and on. But if you know nothing about the sport, it's definitely a book that you need. If you already wrestled and know about the sport, it will definitely take you back to your beginning days and you'll get a smile on your face remembering where it came from.
Oh, it just sounds like a book that anyone could enjoy. And I certainly would not have said, oh, I think I'm going to go out and find a book on wrestling. But looking at the book and seeing it and knowing how you put so much of the local talent to work at it really, really makes a difference. And how does your son feel about the book now that he's a senior in high school? How does he feel about the book?
He thinks it's really cool. He's like, you should have done it a long time ago, Mom. I'm like, I know. And then I have a 9-year-old daughter. She's portrayed in the book and she sings the national anthem in the book and she's never done that before, but I can see her doing it one day when she's older. He really likes it. And he was one of them that some of the phrases in there, like I felt like my lungs were on fire and stuff, like he told me those feelings, you know, that he had. And he likes it. He's supposed to be helping me sell the books, so we have a deal. He can get so much money per book if he sells them. So if you see him and he hits you up, he's supposed to be helping me do that. But he's excited. My husband's excited. My daughter is. The wrestling coaches around here are great. I sent a flyer out to a lot of the local clubs around here in Medina County, and I've been getting orders from them. Nathan Tomasello, great wrestling guy. In the world of wrestling, many people know him. He just did a little shout out on his personal page. So like a lot of people are excited because there was never a book like this before. So it's something that definitely is needed. And like you said, I mean, you'll love it if you finish reading the whole book. I don't remember if I sent you one or not, but I'll get you one. But it's really a great book. I had a mom the other day. She's like, I just was going to read it for a couple pages. She goes, I couldn't finish. And one of our old wrestlers, he's a Marine, and he sat down and he was going to read a couple pages. His mom's like, Sue, he hasn't taken his eyes off the book. And then I got a text, like 25 minutes later. So, I mean, it really, it's stuff that people are liking. So I'm excited.
Well, where can people get the book?
So right now it is, you can buy it on my website. And hopefully by Saturday night, so let's say Sunday,
so you're talking about when you say Saturday night. This program is going to be showing the whole month of December. Oh, okay. And it will be available online, watchwctv.com. So then anything that's coming up, let us know.
So it should be available on Amazon starting Sunday the 29th.
29th of November.
November 29th. Hopefully it'll be all set because tomorrow I'm supposed to be working on that. And it's currently right now at Chatham General Store in Chatham, Ohio. And I'm trying to get it into some other local places, but most of my sales are coming from the website. And I have a free shipping promo, free ship, all in capital letters. So then you just have to pay for the book and tax, and then the 29th of November. Also, I'm supposed to be going to a wrestling tournament in Boardman and selling them, but I'm not sure if that's gonna, I have to wait for the COVID thing, but I'll be selling at local tournaments and wherever they let vendors in, I'll be doing that.
Okay. Well, then, so there will be, by the time that this show is being broadcast,
Mhm.
most of that will already be in place.
Yes, it should be. So that'll be good timing. Yeah.
That,
The Amazon thing I'm kind of nervous about, but yeah, so we'll do that. But most of it is just on my website right now. And today I sent books to Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Indiana, and then 2 places in Ohio. My book is in 13 states now that people have bought on the website. So I'm excited.
oh, well, congratulations so much to you. This has really been a wonderful opportunity to talk with you. I wish you all the best. And for our viewers, I hope that you, if you have any interest in this, or you have maybe a child or grandchild that you would like to uh, provide a book for them, this may be just a book, something a little different. So thank you so much, Sue, for being our guest. And everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning into RSVP. For RSVP, I'm Irma Baker.